name is Chris Rohloff, and my dad is Grant Rohloff. Grant Rohloff was a surf film documentary maker. He started making his documentaries back in 1958 and basically worked all through the later part of the 80s. He was one of the pioneer filmmakers of his era. There was a handful of people: Bud Brown, Walt Phillips, John Severson, Greg Knoll, Bruce Brown. Most people don't know my dad made the most surf movies back in that era, more than anybody else. He's only noted for like 1 or 2, but he made about 12. John Severson was publishing Surfer magazine. She started in 1950. At around 55, John Severson started making surf movies, and my dad started apprenticing for him. And in 1958, embarked on a surf filmmaking odyssey of his own. He started shooting over on the North Shore in Mexico and Hawaii, and came out with his first surf film back in 1960 called The Wonderful World of Surfing. And that was what launched my dad's surf documentary name amongst his peers. I remember my dad telling me this story about when he was in Hollywood High School back in the 50s. It was on a weird trip to the dean's office one day. He met the infamous Mickey Dora. And they were both kind of doing time. They both looked at each other and they kind of gave that little like, "Hey, what's going on?" He goes, "Hey, you look like you surf, Grant." And he kind of said, "Yeah," and just started getting into it, you know, and he didn't know who he was talking to at the time. And then Dora replied, "Yeah, I think there's a south swell," and my dad said, "Come on, let's go." And they bolted out of the dean's office and headed for Malibu, and the rest was history. They became great friends, and he actually allowed my dad, as one of his only film people, to actually photograph him all through those days, because Dora was kind of a weird cat. One of his famous short movies he made was a movie called Wet and Wild. During the same time, he made a motorcycle film called Popsicle. If you say those titles right after each other, you think I'm talking about a porn film. But no, Wet and Wild was just a great movie. The title, just everything about it, set him apart from a lot of other people during that time, because my dad really believed in throwing comedy into his films. And Popsicle, he did in 1965, I believe. It was about a year or so before Bruce Brown did On Any Sunday. Kind of gave Bruce Brown the idea. My dad was this very mellow, peaceful, easygoing, kind of quiet person who just let his camera do the talking. He was one of the only cameramen that was really allowed in that whole Santa Cruz scene back in the 60s, because most people don't know the locals up in Santa Cruz were really pretty hostile and didn't like any of people coming in and out of their turf. Because he really enjoyed what he did. He made his living off surfing. Everybody used to kind of put him down and like, "Oh, you gotta get a real job, you gotta do this, you gotta do that," whatever society dictates at the time, you know, and his peers were all like doctors, lawyers, and this and that, and he was traveling non-stop, going back and forth to Hawaii, Mexico, all around the world, making these movies, having sell-out performances at venues all around Hollywood, LA, Hawaii, and so forth. So, play hard, work a little, you know. I would say he lived a pretty rich and meaningful life.
Where did you find this stuff?
I found this stuff actually in Venice, where my dad had one of his last cutting rooms / garage. He would always kind of convert these garages he'd rent out through people he knew, and it was somebody would own a house, then they would allow my dad to use their garage. And my dad always called it the studio. And it's basically you pull up in the alley like, Grant, you there? So anyway, we sifted through that, my mom and myself, Judy Rohloff, and I found this secret little bag, and it turned out to be this whole treasure trove of stills that were like I had never known. My dad took still photography. I always thought he was always known for his movies he made. So I went through all this and found hundreds and hundreds of magical stills, all from Hawaii and his travels down to Mexico, Europe, and so forth. It was like a kid in a candy store, and all of a sudden seeing, you know, hundreds of 16mm canisters, and then stumbling onto that brown bag that had all these stills. My dad has some really historical, great vintage shots. I've been able to enhance and clean up throughout the years to make presentable to people today to purchase some of my dad's artwork.